Pahòm was a peasant, just an ordinary man. A simple soul who worked the land with sweat and effort, just trying to get by. He wasn't starving, but he wasn't rich either. He lived in a village with his wife, breaking his back in the fields, always wrestling with the same thoughts. One above all, if only I had a little more land, things would be better. One day he found himself caught in a conversation between his wife, a farmer like him, and her sister, who was married to a city merchant. The two women were teasing each other about their different lifestyles, until Pahòm, who had been listening in silence, stepped in and said, "Our only problem is that we don't have enough land. If we had more land, we wouldn't even be afraid of the devil." It was a throwaway line, said without much thought. But the devil heard it, and he wasn't about to miss the chance to step in. And that's where everything begins. The devil decides to test this man who believes he'd be invincible. If only he had more land. So he tempts him. And at first, things actually go well. Pahòm manages to buy a good piece of land nearby. He sells some livestock, some honeycombs, takes on a bit of debt, borrows from his brother-in-law. He pulls together the money and buys his first real piece of land. He works with passion, gets a good harvest, and even manages to repay part of his debt. He feels satisfied. For the first time, he owns some land, and he looks at it with new eyes. Every blade of grass seems special. He's happy, at least for a while. But soon the neighbors start to bother him. Their animals wander into his fields, ruining the crops. He starts getting angry. He files complaints. Relations with the neighbors get worse. Peace disappears. That same land that once felt like freedom now ties him down with arguments, frustration, and disappointment. So he starts thinking maybe the problem isn't how much land he has, but where it is. If only he could move somewhere quieter, with more space. And then he hears about another area where the land is said to be even more fertile. He sells everything, leaves his home, and moves there with his family. Once again, things start out well. The land is good. The harvests are rich. He owns much more than before. But after a while, even that place feels too small. He wants more. One morning, a traveler, a passing peasant, comes by and tells him about a distant land inhabited by the Bashkirs, a simple and welcoming people who live on the steppe. He says the land there is practically endless and that you can buy as much as you want for almost nothing. All you have to do is show up, bring a few gifts for the village elders, and strike a deal. Pahòm gets excited. He feels like this might be the opportunity of a lifetime. He packs up, leaves his family, takes a servant, some supplies, and sets out. When he arrives, the Bashkirs welcome him with open arms. They didn't know farming. They lived by raising livestock and eating meat and dairy. They offered him tea, cheese, mutton. They laughed, joked, and didn't seem to care much about borders or property. Then they explained their custom. For 1,000 rubles, a big sum for Pahòm, but still doable, he could have as much land as he could walk around in a single day, from sunrise to sunset. He simply had to start at one point, walk in a loop while marking the ground with a shovel, and return to the same spot before the sun went down. Whatever land he enclosed would be his, but there was a catch. If he didn't return in time, he would lose everything, even the money. Pahòm agreed. He couldn't wait. That night, he struggled to sleep. He kept thinking about how much land he might be able to claim. He did the math, imagined the crops, the herds, the houses he would build. At some point, he fell asleep and had a dream. He saw himself dead, lying naked on the ground, while someone nearby laughed. It was strange and unsettling. but when he woke up, he shook it off and focused on getting ready. At sunrise, he set off, shovel on his shoulder, water and bread in his bag, and off he went. Things started great. He marked the first corner. The sun rose, the heat grew, and he reached the second point. He felt strong, full of energy. So he decided to go a bit farther since the land was good and it would be a shame to leave some out. He marked the third corner, only one side left. He looked up to see how far he still had to go. And that's when he realized he might have gone too far. The starting point was far off, and the sun was already beginning its slow descent. At first he quickened his pace. Then he started running. He was drenched in sweat. His feet hurt, his throat was dry, his legs were shaking. But he kept running. The sun was dropping fast. He saw the hill ahead, saw people in the distance calling to him, saw his money bag placed on the fur coat that marked the starting point. He was close, almost there. The sun was about to disappear. He climbed the hill, the final stretch. He made it. He collapsed to the ground, his hands touching the fur. It looked like he had won. But he didn't get up. His heart was pounding. His breath stopped. Blood came from his mouth. That was the end. Killed by his own effort. Among the stunned onlookers, someone said, "He gained so much land, but in the end, all he needed was 6 feet, just enough to bury him." How much land does a man need? It's a simple but powerful parable. Tolstoy wrote it in 1885 and published it in Russian the following year in a popular magazine. It wasn't released as a bookstore novel, but as a moral story meant for everyone. Tolstoy wrote it after publishing his greatest novels, during a time when he was fully immersed in his moral and religious phase, a phase marked by a deep rejection of bourgeois values and wealth. And even though nearly 150 years have passed, this story is more relevant than ever. It speaks about greed, that mental trap that always pushes us one step further. When you have little, you dream of having enough. When you have enough, you dream of having more. It becomes a race. And those who run too far eventually trip, or even collapse from exhaustion. The truth is, Pahòm didn't lack land. He lacked peace. He didn't know how to stop. He couldn't say, "I'm fine now, this is enough, let me enjoy it." His idea of freedom, of fulfillment, was tied to quantity, but he ended up chaining himself. The devil didn't have to do anything dramatic. He just let the man go too far. And that's the harsh truth. The deception doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. We keep telling ourselves, one day, when I have enough, that's when I'll finally feel at peace. But if you're not at peace with little, you won't be with much either. And that's a lesson worth more than 1,000 financial plans. In the end, the only land a man truly needs is the land where he'll be buried. And you? How much land do you need to feel truly satisfied?